One of the great things about this is its scan feature. So I actually like the fact that we have a wireless here, you have a wireless on, there's a wireless here, I walk in and I'm like, all right, what are you on, what are you on, what are you on? I could walk over and say, okay, you're on 608, you're on 614, you're on, that's what you would have to do normally, okay? But what we have is something called scan. All right?
I never could find that feature.
You go into the menu, okay, and it's very easy. It's called Easy Setup. You go into the menu, Easy Setup, you hit Scan your new list, and basically what it'll do is what we call sniff the air. So what it'll do is go through every frequency that has available the ability to receive and say, check it, check it, check it, check it, check it, check it. When it's done with its scan, it'll basically tell you what frequencies are available. So it'll say to you, okay, these frequencies will work here. And then we have a new feature, and this is new to G3 as well. We have an infrared port in the receiver in the camera mountable receiver. So what this infrared port does is it allows you to transmit via infrared signal the frequency information. So rather than, okay, I have bank 1, channel 1, now I have to go to my transmitter and manually dial it in, I can sync it up by holding the two infrared ports up to each other and sync. I can do a scan and sync in literally a minute, and I can find the frequency in a new environment. Okay, so that's one of the big new features as well is that infrared sync port. Okay,
on the G3 as opposed to the G3.
On the G3, that's correct. Yes.
So will it, like if you go Easy Setup and scan new list, right?
Correct.
Will it automatically find the ideal signal for that particular location?
What we've done is we have banks of pre-coordinated frequencies. Okay, in G3 we have 12 pre-coordinated frequencies in 10 banks. Pre-coordinated frequencies mean that if you need more than one wireless to work together, and you have no knowledge of frequency coordination or finding frequencies, we've done the work for you to ensure that in a perfect RF environment with nothing else going on, 12 frequencies will work together and they will not crosstalk, there will be no intermodulation, there will be no interference whatsoever. So when what the scan does is it takes you to the bank with the most available frequencies. So if bank 6 has 12, it'll take you to 12 first. You can manually dial in, and as you dial through banks, one second, you can select whatever frequency and it will skip over the bad ones.
So you still have to kind of see which signal is the cleanest.
No.
You still have to play it. Is it foolproof?
It's foolproof.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Cool. All right.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Speaking of foolproof, what if you do your setup and then in the middle of something, for instance, a ceremony, there is suddenly interference from a police car or a fire engine or some other frequency, will it switch automatically to?
No, it will not. No, it will not switch automatically. Once you've dialed in a frequency, you have to change the channel.
Not foolproof.
Foolproof. Setting up a frequency, it is foolproof. It'll at the time when it does its scan, it will select the frequency.
It stays on that no matter what other.
That's correct. That's correct. It's not agile in the sense that like I see it's constantly switching and constantly searching. It doesn't do that. So I want to go over a couple other features in addition to the wider switching bandwidth and the infrared sync port. The audio output cable on the receiver acts as a second antenna. So now you have a diversity system. All right. So before, this was the only antenna. Okay. So whatever this received that's what you got. That's what you had. All right. The audio output cable acts as a second antenna. Now, it's not a true diversity system because a true diversity system would have two independent receiver modules in a single chassis with a microprocessor analyzing the signal strength of each antenna. And once the signal strength of one antenna drops below a certain tolerance, provided the other antenna is stronger, it'll switch without any sound seamlessly to the other antenna. So you're always getting the best possible signal. This is not what this is doing. We're just adding a second antenna. But adding that second antenna improves your transmission by 15%. Okay? So you have improved transmission range, you have more agility, and you have quick syncing of your transmitters. That's the big new features on G3.
A question on the frequencies. I think I'm operating around 658. Now,
Okay.
at that frequency, can Blackberries affect it? Because it happens to me infrequently, but it does.
BlackBerry, cell phones, it's not the cell phone it's not the cell phone receiving that's interfering with that you're hearing. The cell phone is actually pinging the closest tower. So what's happening is the cell phone is being picked up by the transmitter based on its proximity to the transmitter, and then you're receiving that transmitted signal. So it's not the cell tower that's necessarily interfering with you.
No, it's the actual unit.
Yeah, it's
No, but somebody might be wearing their BlackBerry and you're interviewing them
right.
with a lavalier, and occasionally, now, I'm just thinking that, could it be the older BlackBerries?
There's no rule of thumb in regard
Yeah,
to
there's no rule of thumb.
It's
because
more
it doesn't
like-
happen all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I made sure I turned off
Right.
my BlackBerry before I put, I mean, obviously, you might want to just say, if you have a BlackBerry, could you just turn it off for the
Right, that's
interview?
what we did.
Follow up to that,
Right.
same thing. Do you have a clue how close? In other words, could they just maybe move it to their other pocket
Usually
and
that's-
shut it off
yeah.
is the only way to do it?
Body
or-
absorption is usually effective, a means by which to block RF, or to, so like people wear two transmitters on their hips, like, pistols, and it's usually that's good enough. Like, so what happens usually is the guy is wearing the lavalier and the BlackBerry's in his shirt pocket.
If he moved it to another part of his body, that'd be okay?
Like it should be
Yeah,
fine.
because in his particular circumstance, most of them won't be able to turn off that equipment. He's working with physicians.
So if you have the physician wear the belt pack on this side and then switch
Yeah, sometimes it still picks it up.
But you have to
it'll
notice it and ask them.
it'll help somewhat, and it should reduce it somewhat. I mean, if they can't turn it off, that's what you can do.
I don't know, I was
Sir.
doing a conference with the doctors, and I was far away from them, and they were in the audience. Every BlackBerry wasn't, I heard it, interfering. I couldn't use it, the audio. Only my
I've
independent
interviewed
recorder.
someone here, and their bag, their briefcase is over there, and their phone is in there, and it's still effective.
It's just the worst thing. Do you experience, what frequency range in New York City you would recommend, AB or AB?
Well, we have three ranges now: A, B, and G. So G falls in between A and B.
Yeah.
G seems to be the most flexible around. Unfortunately, C was the best in New York City.
Yeah, that's why.
Right. So a lot of people like, oh, buy C, buy C, buy C, and then I was like, oh, great. So I would start with G, but A, if you do a scan, and it depends if you're indoors, if you're outdoors, because a lot of times if you're indoors, you might get some attenuation from the building. Like I've done scans in rooms on 23rd Street, thinking like, okay, we're never going to get a frequency here, and it was a completely wide open because of the building. So a lot of times being indoors will greatly diminish the like, for example, Madison Square Garden is in the epicenter of RF hell, but if you go inside of Madison Square Garden, it's like Idaho, it's like Kansas. And then you take that same spectrum analysis and walk out the door, and it's like, oh my God, we're never gonna find. So a lot of buildings will actually, and if you go to our frequency finder, you can change the attenuation. So if you're indoors, you get more attenuation because obviously you're indoors. So yes.
I have a question. I'm newbie to wireless mics altogether, and
You made a good choice.
I purchased. Yeah, I did some research and I bought the G3, and I'm happy with it. My question is, how can you have two wireless mics to one receiver?
Okay. With
Like say
Sennheiser?
you see this, yeah,
With
you see
Sennheiser,
this
you
setup
can't.
right now.
With Sennheiser you can. That's a single channel receiver. So the rule of thumb is one transmitter for one receiver. Okay.
So it only goes like
It's
one way.
It's basically that's set to receive one frequency. So if you have a transmitter transmitting on that frequency, great. If this gentleman has a transmitter and turns on the same transmitter, you're going to crosstalk. You're going to get intermodulation, and it won't work.
I see.
So there are manufacturers, and very good manufacturers, that make dual receivers in
Not Sennheiser.
a single chassis. We don't.
Oh, okay.
So basically, to send two channels, you need actually two receivers in a single.
Right. Like for a
chassis.
situation when you have a camera on a Steadicam and two people talking, both of them having mics. You know what I mean?
I understand, yeah.
And you know what I mean, picking up just to one channel of audio into the camcorder and everybody happy.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you need, for Sennheiser, you need 2 receivers. You need 2 systems
I see.
for 2 channels.
And can I ask one more question?
Of course.
Okay, so the lavalier, you have quite a few different lavaliers, right? The one I'm looking for is the one that isolates the background noise and only picks up near the speaker.
So
Which one is it
We
for
offer
the G3?
we offer omnidirectional, which is this one. So omnidirectional, the sound picks up all around. And if I'm running over, just give me a sign.
It only
I don't
picks
want-
up the speaker?
No, omnidirectional picks up everything.
Oh, okay.
So you're in very noisy
That's the
environment.
one that I got
Right,
with the
okay.
package, yeah, okay.
We also offer a cardioid. So cardioid, as the name would suggest, it's shaped like an upside down heart.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm talking with a cardioid handheld and you start talking, the null point is right behind the mic. So that gives you more directivity. So that gives you a little more rejection. The only thing is it accentuates low frequency because if you ever listen to a radio program and you hear that guy and he's talking like this and then he's being interviewed and he talks, you know, he has a normal sounding voice. Something called proximity effect. So the closer you get to a microphone, the more bass is accentuated in your voice.
Right.
That's not good for windy environments because wind is low frequency. So a cardioid microphone is going to really pick up wind really badly. Whereas an omnidirectional is still going to pick up wind, but it's not going to emphasize it as much as a cardioid would. So if you're indoors and you need a little more, a tighter pattern, okay, a cardioid is good. The only thing is you have to be careful where you put it on the person's
Somewhere
shirt.
mid-shirt, right?
It
Mid-shirt?
has to be mid-shirt.
Yeah.
Because if it's here, I can put this Omni anywhere, and it's pretty much going to give me the same frequency response, and it's going to give me the same performance, regardless of where I put it.
I see.
If I take a cardioid and I do this, the frequency response is going
Go
to
down.
drop,
I
and
see.
you're not going to get the performance that you need. So in a controlled environment, indoors, where you have the time to dress the mic and that I would recommend a cardioid. If you're not,
Which model in particular would you recommend?
well, we have the 122. The ME4 is the microphone. That's the cardioid option that we offer for this series.
Perfect, thank you.
My pleasure.